RSS was formed in 1925. So in another 3 years, it will be completing 100 years.
Amazing.
And this may be the only organization which has not split or died down in a century.
Correct. Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a video and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Today, I am privileged, honored, and delighted to welcome a very, very accomplished individual who is going to demystify the RSS, the Rashtriya SwayamSevak Sangh, for us, Mr. Ratan Sharda. Ratanji, welcome to the show.
Namaskar ji.
Namaskar.
Good to be on your show.
Thank you so much, Ratanji. Ratanji is the author of RSS 360, Demystifying the Rashtriya SwayamSevak Sangh. He's also the author of another book, which you can see just behind him in black cover, which is RSS, Evolution from an Organization to a Mass Movement. In Ratanji's own words, there is a big hunger among people to know the RSS and understand it better. At the outset, I would like to state that I have been a member of the RSS since the time I was 10 years old through my chacha, who was Dr. Jagmohan Garg. I lost contact for 2 decades, and when I came back to India, I got reassociated with a chapter in Gurgaon, or with the Shaka in Gurgaon. And my conversations with Ratanji are basically an attempt to demystify the RSS. I've never met anyone who does not say, I'm not proud to be a Hindu, but they don't understand enough of the RSS. And I'm hoping that my conversations, my own learnings from Ratanji will be able to sort out a lot of these so-called cobwebs. Ratanji's book is in 3 parts. One is the spirit of the RSS, the form of the RSS, and the manifestation. And therefore, we will follow the same format. We will do 3 sets of interviews with Ratanji on the RSS. Ratanji, let me start with asking you a few basic questions on the RSS. When was the RSS formed, and what was the objective?
Good to ask very basic question, Ashutosh ji. RSS was formed in 1925. So in another 3 years, it will be completing 100 years.
Amazing.
And this may be the only organization which has not split or died down in a century.
Correct.
Because otherwise, we Indians are very famous for splitting and creating new organizations, having difference of opinion on every possible thing. So that's one thing that is very interesting about RSS. And it was established by Dr. Hedgewar, who had a very long record of fighting for Indian freedom struggle, right from his childhood to his education in medical education, and then back into Congress, Hindu Mahasabha, finally starting Rashtriya SwayamSevak Sangh. So then Rashtriya SwayamSevak Sangh was born because of his own experience. When he realized that after going through all these organizations and their working, he realized that basic issue is with Hindu society itself, that it is so disorganized, it is so quarrelsome about itself, and that despite its wonderful history and glorious past, it still got defeated, got enslaved, basically because we fought within each other. So he realized that unless the society gets organized, disciplined, people with high character, who are proud of their culture and their country, we will not be able to do much for the country, even if we become free. Because after becoming free, if we don't change the fundamental thinking, then we will be just changing the rulers, not really the narrative. And we actually see that till 2014, this is what is happening. Despite all the efforts of RSS, RSS kept alive the spirit of Indian genius, the Indian culture and Indian traditions and Indian knowledge system. So that is how we see slowly over a period of 90 years, things have finally changed, because it's a little slow process, because RSS basically is supposed to be doing man making or character building and molding each and every person into a good worker for the society and working for the society. So it is not an easy task. As you know, you have been training people. So to train people even for a limited job is one thing, but to train people for running your life itself is a long process. So it has taken a little longer. But the overall rise in consciousness of the society has resulted in what we see as a total change in the narrative, the way we look at our country and society. And the way we are proud now that we had enough of knowledge systems and all that. But due to our 1,000 years of slavery and then wonderful molding of the mind by Macaulayan system of education, we have lost our moorings. So that has changed now. So that I would say in a nutshell what has changed.
Very, very interesting. So before I get into the first part of the book, which is the spirit, I got one more question to ask you. What were some of the defining moments of the RSS in the first, say, 40, 50 years? And what was the role the RSS played in the independence movement?
Yeah, it's quite a long question. I'll try to keep it short because you're supposed to have short sessions.
Yeah.
See, RSS, if you look at, many people look at RSS as a monolithic organization, which was as it is since 1925, nothing has changed. But RSS itself is very innovative organization. The very idea of Shaka, the very idea of its way of organizing and training people is totally different from what has happened in the world all around. So the innovation and the spirit of experimenting new ideas has led to many steps in RSS history, which are elaborated much better in the next book, that is RSS Evolution from our Organization to a Movement. But basically, I would say that some incidents that took it to the next stage, I can say that in the next orbit. So if you see by 1942-43, RSS had become very strong, powerful organization in many parts, but it was still not all India in the sense that not penetrated each and every area. But despite this, when the partition took place, when the then Congress party agreed to partition and the Muslim League went berserk, at that time, or the period of partition, it was none other than RSS and at that time the Akalis who fought to save the lives and honor of men and women who had to cross over, who were left behind in the new Pakistan. And lakhs of people are saved. Thousands of women were saved from dishonor. They were brought back and the rehabilitation work done. It was a massive work and that really raised the popularity of RSS very much, which led to the second stage, that was ban on RSS. It was the first ban, although unofficially in 1932, British had also tried by putting some curtailment that government organizations cannot join it and government teachers cannot join it and put many conditions about uniform, this or that, but it carried on. This was a massive ban, which was total. And the assassination of Gandhi was just an excuse because Congress was already much wary of rising popularity of RSS because of the work it had done for refugees and for victims of partition. And interestingly, Guruji never liked the word refugee. He never used to refer Pakistan as Pakistan. He would say that part of India that was cut off from India. He would say that they are our brothers. How can they be refugees? They are part of our society. So when this happened, there are a lot of attempts to somehow curtail RSS work by Congress party passing resolutions in Maharashtra centrally to somehow stop RSS. Then Gandhiji's assassination became a good excuse for them. Although within 1 month CID report came that RSS had no hand at all. Correct. Despite this 1.5 years that charade went on. So this RSS Satyagraha, when 77,000 RSS people went to jail, totally non-violent agitation, no violence at all, very peaceful. And many lost their lives, many lost their jobs after Gandhi's assassination. Actually, history record have been obliterated. There was huge riots against Chitpavan Brahmins because the Godse was a Chitpavan Brahmin and also against RSS. But Guruji said, don't respond because there are people. So with that, the Satyagraha happened and in Satyagraha, 77,000 people went to jail, from farmers to businessmen to, every kind of people. And this agitation, in fact, number of people who went to jail is higher than the number of people who went to jail in 42. Amazing. So that was second. Third was after ban was lifted, the complete revival of RSS from nearly a different organization when many people had suffered, they sat home and many had suffered so much of damage to their personal lives that they had to restart. So RSS restarted. So the next step was formation of Vishwa Hindu Parishad. I consider it as very important historic landmark because this was a religious organization. RSS is not a religious organization. BHP is. And this organization was formed with the Sandipani Ashram's head, Swami Chinmayananji. And the goal was to bring brotherhood, to revive Hindu religion and its various aspects, reform Hindu society. And for the first time, all the sannyasins, all Shankaracharyas, more than 200 various sampradayas sat on a single stage at a single level. When I say single level, it's very important because people will be surprised that those times of those Mahant and those Mathadish, they would not sit on the same level. They would say, I am higher, I am bigger. I will not share the stage. Second was that their deep belief in Varnashram, which at that time had deteriorated into Varnashram Dharma. So the first resolution passed by VHP in Prayag was Hindu na patito bhavet. And that all the Hindus are Hindava Sahodara, born from the same womb, that is Bharat Mata. So this was the first open declaration by all the Shankaracharyas and conservative mutt heads due to efforts of Guruji, that they said all are equal, there is no fallen Hindu, and casteism is outdated. For this he had to work very hard, but it did. So that is why I consider this very important first step in the reform of Hindu society, officially at a big level at first time after thousands of years, when all the Sant Mahants and various Sampradayas came on a single stage. At the same time, Varmasi Kalyanashram was also formed, but that went a separate way. It worked separately, worked in Jashpur. And I will just talk of the historic importance of Vishwanti Parishad. Then there was, of course, if you remember, there was Meenakshipuram episode.
Correct.
Not many of this generation know that about 1,000 families were converted to Islam. And the Islamists at that time claimed we will convert 1 lakh people into Islam in Tamil Nadu itself. So this raised alarm bells, including Indira Gandhi and everybody. So immediately VHP took action, went into various villages, influenced and motivated Sadhu Mahants to go to various villages and talk to them, take out Rath Yatra, etc. Then this was finally converted into Ekatmata Yatra, which was the first massive people's campaign, people's contact program. I forgot one step before that. I'll come to that after this. There's Swami Vivekananda Rock Memorial. It was a massive attempt for the first time when 1 rupee coupon were used to reach out to millions of people, and about 30 lakh or 3 million rupees were collected through 1 rupee coupons.
Wow.
So idea was to connect to people. So this was first mass contact, and this resulted in a place, a memorial, which was highly objected to by the coastal churches in that area. But finally it was done. And Shri Eknath Ranade was specially released from RSS to do this work. And now Vivekananda Kendra is a huge organization doing work in yoga, you're doing work in tribal areas, doing work in Northeast for the tribals. So coming to Ekatmata Yatra, there were 5 major yatras and there were about 300 minor yatras, which had a truck, Bharat Mata's image, and Ganga Kalash containing Ganga water. And you may have seen at your age at that time. And the small bottles are distributed. And the response was mind-blowing. I will not get into detail because of lack of time. But about 8 to 10 crore people participated. So this was biggest mass movement of that time. And this then next went to the next level of Ram Janmabhoomi. So within about 2 years, Ram Janmabhoomi movement picked up, and we know the entire history because of huge anti and pro propaganda about Ram Janmabhoomi. So I will not get into details. But Ram Janmabhoomi was basically assertion of our right over land, our right over our faith, and our right to have our own gods given due respect. If not in Bharat, where else? So this movement was first which went across caste, which went across urban rural divide, which was away apart from anything whatever had happened so far, which connected everybody from poor to rich. And just to give one example, when in famous 91 Car Seva, when Mulayam Singh and Congress government used all tricks, stopping trains about 50-60 miles outside and arresting people, at that time each and every village hosted Car Sevaks who were moving in a very silent manner, secretively, once they were dropped from the train to somehow save themselves from getting arrested. And each and every home hosted them, poor to rich. And this was the involvement. So some people who think that was something, that RSS created, it energized the entire society.
Absolutely.
And that is the reason each and every human being or person felt that, this Ram Mandir must be built, because it's one of the most popular 3 gods. And if his Janmasthan is such a poor state, then what should be done? So, and historical evidence was there despite all the fight by the seculars. So this was one big movement. And then on, as we know, that continuously various things have happened. And over a period of time, RSS has moved into a stage where it is now mass movement. Everybody wants to join. There is emergency. 1975, the fight for democracy in 75, 76, when more than 108,000, as reading Shah Commission report, 108,000 people are officially arrested under MISA and Defense of India rule and under some criminal charges. Of them, nearly 80% are RSS related people. And apart from that, there are people who offered satyagraha, of which 90% or 80% are RSS related people. Next was Akali Dal, next was Jai Gurudev movement. And so-called great revolutionary socialist and communist party people are hardly there. True. Of course, Dange in fact supported emergency. Very true. So this emergency showed that RSS cared for democracy. It struggled for democracy despite new age historians refusing to acknowledge. But the fact remains that RSS was the spine of underground movement, including the movement overseas, Friends of India Society International, which hosted Dr. Swami, which spread the information about the oppression in India. So it was a big movement, pro-democracy movement, which was the highlight and which again made us pay a very heavy price. Many people lost jobs. Many people lost their years in college, right to earn, but they went on working. And that is how finally we saw return of democracy. Very interesting. So these are some major landmarks which can talk about.
Fantastic, fantastic. So I'm going to now move on, Ratanji, to ask you, as you said, important to ask very basic questions for our viewers and listeners. Let me start with saying that why do we in the RSS call India a Hindu nation or a Hindu Rashtra when we've got so many other religions here?
See, I would use a very simple logic. What are the top brands of India that world looks at? It looks at yoga. It looks at spirituality. It looks at its Sanskrit, which is the most scientific language. And it looks up to its knowledge. It's a huge treasure of knowledge, which includes Mahabharata, Ramayana, Upanishads, and all various scriptures that we see. What are these? They are Hindu.
Right.
So the identity of India remains Hindu, whether you split hair or whatever you do. So this very spirit of Bharat is Hindu. You may call it Bharatiya, you may call it Indic, because Hindu is a comparatively new word, born maybe about 1,000 years back. But before that, we were Bharatiyas. Correct. Because we did not have any religion, we had only dharma. And there were sampradayas. So there were Shavais, there were, Devi Pujaks, there were Vishnu Pujaks, and there was a lot of sects, because we believe that everybody has a right to reach God on its own, on his or her own volition. Correct. So any number of sampradayas are welcome, any level of philosophies are welcome. But this dharmic nature of Bharat, which is inherited by all the religions born in India, there are many common elements of that, which prove that all of them have the same roots. And this particular spiritual dharmic root and also knowledge system, which is Hindu by all means. You cannot have yoga without Hinduism, because Hindu religion's backdrop, because yoga is not exercise. Yoga is reaching ultimate goal of mukti through certain elements which are called Ashtanga Yoga. You cannot have Ashtanga Yoga without spirituality of Hindu. And Hindus discovered it. So when they discovered it, their root comes to India again. And various other customs. Kumbh Melas now happening in Haridwar. Every 12 years, there are 4 places where Kumbh Melas are held, where all over the world, all over Bharat, people come from every tribe, every smallest place, people living in jungle, people living in urban places, sadhu, sant from every sampradaya come and they come together. Idea may have been to have some kind of spiritual mela where people would exchange ideas. I don't know from what time immemorial this is happening. There is no marketing agency, there is no central agency holding it. This, I would call decentralized nature of Hinduism, open structure of Hinduism, as Rajiv Malhotra ji puts it. So this decentralized nature of spirituality, but yet there is unity of Kumbh Mela. Right. Shankaracharya 1800 years back came from Kerala, put up 4 mathams across Bharat, in 4 corners of Bharat. He would have set up in Kerala and said, fine, I am spreading knowledge. Right. No, he chose 4 corners of Bharat. Right. There are 12 Jyotirlings across Bharat, which everybody worships. There is no particular rule. So you have to bring water from Kashi, from Ganga to Rameshwaram. You have to carry Rameshwaram water from the Indian Oceans to Kashi Vishwanath. You have 51 Shakti Peethams, which are across Bharat, from Assam to Gujarat, from Kashmir to Kanyakumari, which shows the spiritual and dharmic unity of Bharat, which is the sap on which this tree of so-called the real diversity, which we call unity expressed diversely. So this, what we say is different customs, basically different traditions, spring from the same belief system, from the same dharmic roots. We have Gudi Padwa now. Gudi Padwa, New Year, is celebrated across Bharat with different names. Poila Baishakh, Bihu, and various names from north to south. Navre in Kashmir, Bihu in Assam. So all these names may be different, but ultimately it is a new year, calendar year, which is based on the Panchang, which was created thousands of years back.
Correct. Well said.
Which is still works. And there are people who keep on doing, fine tuning and all that. So all these things show that ultimately we are one as a nation, and all these roots come from Hindu tradition, Hindu culture, Hindu dharma. So there are different belief systems, but dharma remains Hindu, and that is what is the nature of this Hindu nation. It is more of a geo-cultural concept than purely religious concept, because even Savarkar, who brought up the issue of Hindutva, saying that people who believe in Punya Bhumi, Matrubhumi are Hindus, but he also said in the same book that maybe a time will come when everybody will be living in Hindustan will be called Hindu. For that, the different divisive elements have to be calmed. So this is the approach of RSS, and this is what Hindu nation is. It is not a theoretic state, because Hindu never had a theocratic state. Dharma is not theocracy. It talks of duty of the citizens to the society, to the nation. It talks of individual's duty towards his parents, to his son, to his guru, and guru's duty to sons. So it is all through we are talking of dharmic relations. So this sense of duty and rights of a person, where duty actually is more important, that also comes under dharma. Even a trader follows certain dharma if he is dharmic. Everybody, right from wife to husband to guru to the chief of the state, everybody follows his or her dharma, which is ethical law of operating. So that is the importance. That is how this country carried on for thousands of years and did not die despite all the efforts.
Very interesting. So another question that is often asked is that what is the RSS thinking on women? I mean, Hinduism has always had a very, very prominent place for women. What is the RSS view on women?
RSS Shakas don't have women.
Correct.
But RSS has women in all other activities of RSS.
Correct.
And women play a very important part in RSS working, because they support the families, they support the person who is working. And if you leave aside Shaka, there was cultural reason for this. At that time, if you look at 1925, the kind of games and gymnastic approach of RSS was very close physical contacts and very close playing. And in the Shaka was the center of everything. There, coming together, men and women in physical contact was something that was not really possible in those days. Even today, there are certain limitations to that. In fact, you'll be surprised in USA, where people have Hindu SwayamSevak Sangh. They have now Shakas where men, women come together. They have different physical programs. Finally, they come together again for intellectual exercise. That's their model. But in RSS, apart from Shaka, every activity within even RSS, whether it's media, whether it's intellectual work, or whether it's social work, everywhere women are in large numbers. You total them, they'll be bigger than the number of all progressive women put together. And also, Rashtriya SwayamSevak Sangh, which became a parallel organization in 1936.
Yes.
Lakshmi Kelkar said, I also want something like this for women. And Dr. Hedgewar said, I am not married, I am not a family man, I do not know how to do it, I don't understand. So please, you start, we'll help you totally. From that time, RSS has been guiding and helping Rashtriya SwayamSevak Sangh. It's a big organization on its own with lakhs of members. They have their own lot of seva activities. Vishwa Hindu Parishad was chiefly promoted by Rajmata Sindhia. And there are many some examples. So women are all across in all the organizations, all the activities of RSS except the Shaka. And we respect women. We give them due place, as Mohan Bhagat said. Please do not tell women what to do. Just give them freedom to what they want to do. They know what to do. That is the approach.
So my next question to you, Ratanji, is that why is it that a lot of Hindus in India don't identify with the RSS? I mean, very often if I ask someone who's a Hindu, are you a Hindu? The answer I generally get is I'm secular. What are your thoughts?
See, it is not just RSS. The problem is with the inferiority complex that Hindus have been made to live with, and the way they have been educated, thanks to British education system, further vitiated by the left cabal in sitting in HRD ministries, sitting in various academic institutions, who created an atmosphere where Hindus were despised. Hindus were supposed to be anti-everything, anti-modernism. They were the orthodox, useless people who burned women, who killed children, and who had nothing to offer but caste system. So we were denied the access to our great knowledge system. The first book that came from India during that time, apart from history books, which are banished from the shelves of the libraries, written by Jadunath Sarkar and various other, historians. So we were told we had no history. Aurangzeb was a great king. He used cabs to pay for his maintenance, and he had done no atrocity. That was one whitewashing. Second was that Hindu Dharma has nothing to offer. So first person who actually wrote something based on solid historic evidence of British was Dharampalji, a great Gandhian. I have mentioned a lot about him in my book and a big reference. He in 1960 went to UK, sat there for 6 years and wrote a book called, a couple of books, in fact, the 2 books I know is the Beautiful Tree, which is about education system of Bharat. And many people will be surprised that it was so widely prevalent that in Bengal itself, there are 1 lakh schools, which means 500 schools per student. While in South, it was very prevalent. This was because this is the area he researched. In Britain at that time, total number of people in school of 55,000 only. With this kind of education system, which created wonderful lives. Then we had science and technology, which he again picked up from British books, where he talked about wonderful metallurgy, wonderful science, wonderful medical science, astronomy. And British was so astounded by this. They said that there's some kind of witch, practices and some magical practices that people know so much about astronomy. They can't be that smart because dhoti clad, bare-chested, choti wala Brahmins, how do they know? And what surgery, they said, the surprise inoculation was there. So all these records were brought from the British Library, but surprisingly, this book was never repeated. It was never reprinted by anybody for last so many years. Finally, I found a PDF copy from the net. Now it is being republished with due permission, I think, from some people. That was the condition. If this is the condition, this is what to tell your people. I'm not talking of Vedic knowledge. Deliberately, I'm not talking of Vedic knowledge, because people don't read Sanskrit. They'll say it's all hocus pocus. There are people doing research now. I'm talking of last century, not very past. And of course, we are 23% of the world GDP, etc. You are finance people, all this. I'll not get into that. But this is the kind of strength we had, shipbuilding, whatever you talk of. So this was never told to our people. There is a book by Sanjeev Sanyal which talks about ocean in churn, about the India from the perspective of Indian Ocean.
Right.
Where it ruled not just the seas, also ruled the Southeast Asia through trade, the Middle East and all those areas. It went around the world. We had wonderful ships, we had wonderful maritime practices, and we went right up to China. All this is totally denied knowledge to us. So naturally, we end up feeling very foolish. We end up feeling very, shamed about our religion because we don't know it. Yeah. We don't know our dharmic practices. We don't know scientific rituals. Rituals are there to put certain constraints so you do things in a certain way, but there was science behind it. Nobody tried to explain. And if you look at our own, shlokas, we talk of Jambu Dive Bharat Khande. We talk about Asetu Himachal. So we had complete knowledge. There is a rishi who said India is like an arched bow, which means Himalaya on the top and the triangular shape of India from the bottom. So imagine the sixth sense, you may call it, meditating power, or actually people moving around. People went to Mansarovar and if you go there, they knew the entire area of that. So this wonderful practices, wonderful knowledge system was never shared. Right. So naturally, we feel inferior, we feel horrible. Coming to RSS, just in a small part, RSS was very wonderfully demonized by Nehru. And after Gandhi assassination, and you were surprised when Pracharaks used to go to villages, sometimes they would be thrown out. They would not be offered water. That was the kind of environment created by Congress. But Guruji said, keep on working, people will recognize the work. And when they recognize the work, they recognize Sangha. Don't get into fighting, arguing with these people. That will waste your energy. So that is the reason RSS was out of media. It kept working silently with focused energy. That is how slowly it converted itself from a much despised organization to what we know it today.
Correct.
So this is the reason Hindus fear identifying with RSS, because of the kind of mud thrown at it. But now slowly people realize, especially after social media advent, internet advent, people on their own are trying to find what is RSS. On their own, they are coming to RSS. You'll be surprised, about 8 lakh people have approached RSS to join RSS. I think more, maybe 15 lakh since like 2007-8 when RSS website came up. Not a great site, but people come and register themselves. So the data goes to local pracharak, then he approaches the people. Some of them end up doing wonderful work in Sangha. Some people end up working in Seva Karya. A few may want to go to politics, then they are ready, they can go there. RSS is not a viaduct to go to politics, but 80% of people, I would say at least, are honestly trying to join RSS and do something.
Very interesting. Ratanji, we now run out of time for our part 1. So I just want to say that this has been an absolutely incredible conversation. And I'm going to come back to you in for a part 2 recording. Because I think, we're going to now talk about the form of the RSS in part 2.
Thank you.
So thank you very much. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.